welcome to today's video. Before I get into today's video, I just want to say a little something, and that's that I'm trying something a little different for 2020, and that's I'm gonna try doing the au natural thing, meaning I'm not gonna be focused so much on my putting on makeup. I've convinced myself that the only way that I can get viewers or subscribers to like my videos is to paint myself in makeup and try and make myself look pretty and presentable. And I find that the more people I talk to, they care far more about my personality than my looks, and so I need to know that that's okay for me to rely on that. This is not me trying to sound self-indulgent. If it is, I apologize. But I'm someone who, if my subscribers reach out to me and want to talk, I'm happy to communicate with them, and I love chatting with you guys. And I learned that a lot of you guys have the same insecurities that I do. So I guess I'm not only trying to feel better in myself and more confident in myself, but kind of lead by example and do that for others. Because it's really stupid to think, because guys don't have this problem. You know, they don't think about doing their hair and their makeup before they get on camera, and it's kind of stupid that so many women feel that's something that they have to do. So there are going to be a few videos where I don't do that. One of the reasons I don't put out a lot of content, or at least I do, but as much as I want, is because I always think that, oh God, I have to get up and I've got to, you know, hide my rosy face and hide the bags under my eyes and hide just how pale I really am. And because that takes so long, I get put off and I never end up doing the video, and then once I do, it's just an exhausting process, and I don't need to do that. I can put out more videos if I just throw on a sweater and jump in front of the camera. It's actually not that hard. So I'm doing this to try to feel better in myself and lead by example and say it's okay. You don't have to paint yourself to do all that. I like to think I still have good content regardless of how many layers of eyeshadow I have on my eyes. So now that I've said that, is it relevant to today's video? No, it's not, so let's just get into it. We are now in 2020, and there are a lot of top 10s of the decade lists going around. If you're someone who was able to compile such a list, then good on you. I had so many films that I loved over the last 10 years that there was no way I could sum it up to just a top 10. But top 10 horror films of the decade? Now that's easy. If you know me, you know horror is my favorite genre, watching over 200 horror films a year, and that's not an exaggeration. Now there are plenty I like, but I'm super picky, so it's rare for me to find a horror film that gets a perfect score from me, or even stands up on a second viewing, so finding a top 10 of the decade was super easy. So without further ado, here are my top 10 horror films of the decade. At number 10 is A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. This is a Persian language American vampire western film where, in the Iranian ghost town Bad City, a place that reeks of death and loneliness, the townspeople are unaware they are being stalked by a lonesome vampire. This is one of those films you have to see to appreciate. The style, score, and concept are all remarkable, and yet even those words feel like it doesn't do these things justice. It's so different and fantastic, and one that I recommend to any who haven't seen it, but then again, that goes for all the films on this list. Number 9 is The Endless. This is an American science fiction horror film that tells the story of two brothers who visit an alleged cult they formerly belonged to. This was a pretty full-on movie, if I do say so myself, and again, it's not one that can be easily reviewed. It's the kind of film you just have to watch and take in. It reminds me a great deal of Annihilation, but I think The Endless is far more interesting, and there's somehow more depth in its simplicity. It definitely isn't what it appears at first glance, and now has me very interested to see their film resolution. It feels far more of a science fiction film, but I can see the horror elements. Either way, I just couldn't find anything bad about this movie. Number 8 is Matriarch, a British horror thriller film where an expecting mother and husband crash their car in the countryside and are offered shelter by a farmer and his wife. Rachel soon realizes the farmer's children are in fact stolen. Just as they try to escape from the farmer, Rachel goes into labor. I was really surprised and impressed by this one. This film had a really good story, was well written, had a bunch of great characters, performed fantastically by the cast, and had great filming and direction. When it comes to independent horror films, it's hard to find any that do even two of those things well, let alone all of them, so I was impressed. It's a good subject, and you could feel that anxiety and determination and instinct in our main character to escape and save her child, and I like how she kept having obstacles to get past. Nothing was ever clear cut and the end was never certain. I even appreciate that they gave more to the husband instead of him just being a throwaway character. I suspected the twist at the end, but I think they timed it very well and revealed it perfectly. Overall, a great independent horror film with impressive special effects done on what I assume was a small budget and all done in a 12-day time frame. Number 7 is Los Ojos de Julia, also known as Julia's Eyes, a Spanish horror thriller about a woman who is slowly losing her sight whilst trying to investigate the mysterious death of her twin sister. This was bloody brilliant, although I'm wondering why in 80% of Spanish thriller horror movies I end up watching there is some violent, deranged man or men stalking, assaulting, or raping women. Not sure what's up with that. That disturbing fact aside, this truly is a fantastic film. It has fantastic performances, but my favorite thing is how it's filmed. I love how for most of the movie we don't see the villain even when he's on screen. He's called the Invisible Man because only those who have no sight seem to be able to notice him, so to illustrate this we never see him. Then when Julia loses her sight, the shots never show us anyone's faces. Everyone becomes faceless, which reflects the fact Julia cannot see them anymore. I think these ways of reflecting the character and the character's situation in the camera work was quite brilliant. Number 6 is A Floresta das Almas Perdidas, also known as the Forest of the Lost Souls. This Portuguese slasher drama centers around the titular forest, a fictional place between Portugal and Spain, an infamous suicide spot. One morning, two complete strangers with their own demons to bear meet within the woods. Wow, this was absolutely enthralling and so incredibly made. I absolutely loved the story, especially the style. This was unlike anything I've seen on this list so far. It is nothing like your traditional slasher movie, but it is still a slasher movie. I don't think I've seen the genre depicted in such a way before. It's absolutely brilliant. I'm so used to seeing slasher films only done one kind of way that it hasn't even occurred to me you can depict them in such an artistic way. I am so glad I watched this, and I'm so happy to see something breathe new life into the slasher genre. You go Portugal! I feel like I need a flag. Number 5 is Pengabdi Setan, also known as Satan's Slaves, an Indonesian horror film that follows a now poor and hapless family haunted by the death of their mother who dies after being bedridden for 3 years from a strange and debilitating illness. Terima kasih Indonesia, film ini sangat bagus, which means this film is so good, which it is. This was the only film from my 2018 31 Days of Halloween marathon to scare the crap out of me. I jumped and yelled several times. It was fantastic. My heart was pounding a mile a minute through the whole thing. The scares ease off the closer to the end you get, but the tone remains creepy throughout, which is great. A while back, I made a video called Horror the Perfect Formula. I'll put a link to it up here. And in it, I list what I find to be the top 4 things that lead to a good horror film, in my opinion. And this movie ticked all the boxes. It has a human and believable story. It has great build-up and suspense. This supernatural stuff doesn't start straight away. We are eased into it and it slowly progresses just as one would hope. We are given very clever and very effective sound techniques. A benign sound is turned menacing and it was great. Then we have no happy ending. Well, the main characters think they have a happy ending, but it's a false sense of security. I love the jump scares in this because it's the technique of leading up to it but never letting the audience guess when the moment will strike. And another technique I've not seen before, which is playing 2 or 3 scenes overlapping each other and each one appearing to lead up to a jump scare. So not only do you have to guess which moment will be the moment, but you also have to guess which scene is the scene. Safe to say, I love this movie. Number 4 is Suspiria, a supernatural horror film that follows an American woman who enrolls at a prestigious dance academy in Berlin run by a coven of witches. I deeply regret having not watched this the year it came out. This might be one of the single greatest pieces of cinema I have ever seen. I was captivated and wowed by this film. The original is a well-made classic and it has its pros, but this takes that story and amplifies it in ways I didn't think were possible. I'm always against remakes and reboots and reimaginings because they are never able to improve on the original body of work. Well, sometimes, but very rarely. But this is superior in every way. This film is written and filmed so meticulously, and to my surprise, I was able to follow the whole thing. I never felt lost, unsure maybe, but I didn't feel like I had to have all the answers. I typically don't like films filled with metaphorical imagery and unique camera shots, but somehow, in terms of this film, the way each of those elements was brought together and used with the story and the dialogue, or even no dialogue, it all melded together in what I can only describe as sheer cinematic perfection. I felt like I was watching a 1970s film that was filmed in Berlin. This is probably the only modern day film I've seen to be set in another period and embody and embrace that period so much that it becomes impossible to recognize what year it actually comes from. The performances only enhance and carry what is an incredible and difficult script. Johnson and Swinton work exceptionally well off each other and on their own. The way they feed off each other through the whole film is astonishing. I don't believe anyone could have done it better. I'm beyond amazed at what this film achieved and feel like every award should have been thrown at it. To take the original and turn it into this is just pure cinema mastery. Number 3 is Hereditary, a supernatural horror film about a family haunted by a mysterious presence after the death of their secretive grandmother. This was a very divisive film, and originally I thought I'd never watch this again despite finding it to be brilliant, but over the last year I'm thinking maybe I would. I never reviewed it, but I did do an analysis of it, link will be up here, because it's this brilliant film full of supernatural themes that simultaneously talk about mental health and depression. It's not one or the other, but a perfect balance of the two. There are so many jaw-dropping moments, the style in which it is shot adds to the story's narrative, and the performances are just phenomenal. The actors in this film deserved so many awards, it's not even funny. Number 2 is The Conjuring 2, an American supernatural horror film that follows the Warrens as they travel to Britain to assist the Hodgson family, who are experiencing poltergeist activity in their Enfield council house in 1977, which later became referred to as the Enfield poltergeist. I love every single thing about this film from beginning to end. This sequel has a way of pulling at my heartstrings more than the first one did. It's an exceptionally performed, perfectly written and designed film with a score that not only complemented it, but enhanced it. It reminds me hope is not lost for horror movies. James Wan is, without a doubt, at least to me, the best horror director of the modern day. It's great how I notice something new each time I watch it, like all the places the name Valak shows up around the Warrens' home, on the kitchen windowsill, on the kitchen wall, living room bookcase, Judy's bracelet, such small details, but so cool to see. And I just love rewatching this. It never gets old to me. So that's why it's so high on this list. And at number 1 is All Hallows Eve, an American horror anthology film that incorporates scenes from 2 of Leone's earlier shorts, The Ninth Circle and Terrifier, and follows a babysitter who finds a VHS tape, VHS? Why did I say it like that? VHS tape which features various sinister murders performed by a psychotic clown. It's not the best made film on this list, but it is the one I enjoy the most and have revisited the most. It is absolutely perfect and features what I consider to be the best horror clown ever to be introduced in a movie. Sadistic, demonic, silent, and deadly. I think this is a brilliant way for Damien Leone to incorporate all his short films into one full-length film, and it works perfectly. He's created the perfect, there's that word again, horror villain for an independent film. It is better than most big-budget ones in terms of quality. The effects are good and get the job done, and the acting is surprisingly good and includes a well-thought-out plot. I also should mention how perfect the score is. I haven't appreciated it enough in the past, but it's so good and complements this film so very well. It may not be the greatest made film on this list, but it's one that I love the most and definitely love rewatching the most. And that concludes my top 10 horror films of the decade. There is a lot of variety on this list with films from all around the world, which I'm quite happy about. There were some that were so close to making the list, but were just a fraction away from being perfect in my mind, like a Mexican horror thriller film called Espectro, also known as Demon Inside. But yeah, just so close, but so far away. Anyway, that's it for today's video. Please comment below and tell me some of your favorite horror films of the decade. I would love to find out what they were. Thank you to a new year of support from my amazing patrons, and I will catch you all in the next one. Bye!